week one of the fantasy football season. And here's the top 36 receivers I'm ranking this week. So obviously the top 20 about pretty much everyone's going to start, but this is just the order I believe these guys are going to be in this week. The first guy, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. So Jefferson, he was the number one pick overall in most leagues. Has a good matchup this week, home game to open it up this season versus Tampa Bay. And I got him at one. Number two, Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Chase, usually the second receiver off the board as well in fantasy he was this season. And he's going to have another good ball game versus the Cleveland Browns. I know Denzel Ward most likely will be on him, but Ja'Marr Chase, one of the elite receivers already in the league, and I think he has a good one this week. Number three, Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. I think this is a potential shootout with the Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers. And we know Tyreek Hill last season had a monster year, obviously, over 1,500 yards. And this year he's going for 2,000. And here in week one, I could see him put up a huge ball game to start it off. Number four, Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. So St. Brown, I was very big on him coming into the season. And this week here versus a middle-of-the-pack secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs, where this ball game, I think, to open the year should be a shootout. And obviously the over-under is over 50 points in this one. I think St. Brown could find the end zone in this ball game. Like I said, he's one of the better route runners in the league as well. And I got him at four. Number five, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. Brown, what a breakout year was for him in his first season with the Philadelphia Eagles. And this week here versus the New England Patriots, where I think he's going to make some plays in this one. He was a top receiver drafted in the fantasy leagues as well for a reason. And I like him at five this week. Number six, CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. So CeeDee Lamb, he's had a good career versus the New York Giants. And opening night, Sunday Night Football, we got the Cowboys and the Giants and CeeDee Lamb. Him and Dak Prescott last season, they were on the same page. He was making big plays. And we'll see if Lamb could take the next step this season. But this week with a good matchup, I got him ranked a little bit higher than usual over some of these other receivers. Number seven, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. So him and Aaron Rodgers so far, they've had a good rapport in training camp. And obviously that preseason drive we saw. But this week's definitely a tough matchup for Wilson and the Jets. First, that Buffalo Bill defense. But Garrett Wilson, we know last season, had a great rookie year. And this week, I think he had a decent ball game, even with a pretty tough matchup. Number eight, Stephon Diggs for Bills. He's going to have Sauce Gardner on him. A lot of people proclaiming Sauce Gardner is the number one corner in all football. And it's going to be a real test for both guys in this one. But we know Diggs and Josh Allen have a good rapport. We know Diggs was one of the top wide receivers drafted in fantasy leagues, even with a tough matchup. But obviously with Diggs being an elite wide receiver, I got him at 8 this week. Number 9, Davante Adams, Las Vegas Raiders. So Davante Adams, a pretty tough matchup with Surtain, most likely going to be on him here in week 1. And also Jimmy Garoppolo, we'll see if he's 100%. And the numbers definitely could go down because Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have the biggest of arms. So this week here, I got Adams at 9 with a tough matchup, and we'll see if Jimmy G is in good shape. Number 10, Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. So he might be a little bit high that I got Jalen Waddle up there over some of these other wide receivers. But I just like Jalen Waddle, what he could do with the breakaway speed. Him and Tua have a great rapport. And to have single coverage, obviously, especially versus Chargers secondary, that isn't all that great. I think this ball game is a big shootout between both of these teams. And Jalen Waddle this week, I got his 10. Number 11, Calvin Ridley of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know Ridley, he's been out for a season with a suspension, but now he's back. And him and Trevor Lawrence, a lot of good reports out of camp. And this week here indoors at Indianapolis, what obviously is a fast turf. I think it's a good ball game here for Calvin Ridley. He's got that speed. He's still young. And like I said, he's trying to prove people wrong now after he's been out a year. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if Ridley has a big ball game. Number 12, T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. So T. Higgins last season, he had a great year. Underrated wide receivers in the league for me is T. Higgins. Another guy who's going to have single coverage. Cleveland, we know their secondary is pretty decent, but T. Higgins, he could put up a big game anytime, anywhere. And this week, I like him at number 12. Number 13, Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. So pretty good matchup here in week 1 for Olave and the Saints with the Tennessee Titans coming to town. Olave last season, he had a pretty solid rookie year. Obviously, up and down towards the end of the year. But when you had Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton for the majority of the season as your quarterbacks, that's not a good thing. And Derek Carr should be an upgrade. So this week with a good matchup, and him and Derek Carr building on a good rapport, I like him at 13. Number 14, Keenan Allen of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Keenan Allen, health has been the only issue with him throughout his NFL career. And this week here, he's got a good matchup versus the Miami Dolphins, where their secondary's banged up. We know Jalen Ramsey, he's going to miss the first 3-4 games of the season here. And Keenan, as long as he's healthy, him and Justin Herbert, they've been great over the last few seasons. And I got him at 14, number 15, Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Devonta, he was a top 2-round pick. This week, he's got a pretty decent matchup versus the New England Patriots. But Devonta Smith, he's that boom or bust type of wide receiver. There's games he'll go for 30, 40 fantasy points. And then there's games he's only going to get 7 to 10 fantasy points. But this week here with a pretty good matchup, and it just takes one long ball for him to have a great fantasy day. I got him at 15, number 16, DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. So him and Geno last season, they were on the same page. They were good. This week, the Rams are coming to town. We know this Ram team's pretty much depleted and one of the worst teams on paper coming into this ball game. And this one, I think Metcalf has a decent game and is a solid number 2 wide receiver for fantasy owners. Number 17, Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns. So Cooper, the number 1 still over there in Cleveland. And they got some help in the offseason getting Elijah Moore in a deal with the New York Jets. So Amari Cooper and Watson last season, they were up and down in the few ball games Watson played. But I think Cooper has a good ball game, and he was drafted 3rd, 4th round for a reason. So I got him at 17, number 18, Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers. So he might be a little bit high on this list, but I'm big on Christian Watson. And he's another player like a Devonta Smith, where he's a game breaker type of player where he could take a 10-yard slant and run it all the way to the house for 60, 70 yards. And we saw it last season a few times, obviously with Aaron Rodgers, and he's the number 1 man over there, where this Green Bay team's going in a different direction. So Christian Watson this week here versus a mediocre Chicago Bear defense, I think could break one in this one. And he's a nice number 2 wide receiver for your team. This week, number 19, Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers. I wasn't big on Deebo coming into the season because obviously the rush attempts are going to go down. Obviously here for Deebo Samuel with Christian McCaffrey over there now for another full season here for this 49er team. And him and Brock Purdy really weren't on that much of the same page. But this week is a number 2 wide receiver flex option. I think Deebo has a decent ball game. I know the Steelers secondary is pretty solid, but still with his talent and his breakaway speed as well, I got him at 19, number 20, Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Mike Williams, I'm big on him, and he's another game breaker type of wide receiver. Yes, some games he's going to have 25, 30 fantasy points. In some games he's not going to do anything. But this season, this Charger team is going to get the ball down the field a lot with offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who likes pushing the ball down the field. Justin Herbert, we know, has got the big arm, got the big contract. And also, this is a great matchup in a big shootout potential ball game versus the Dolphins coming to town. Obviously, we know Jalen Ramsey as well, number 21, DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. So DJ Moore last season was a bad year for the most part, but then he got it going towards the second half of the season, and now with his new team in the Bears, I think him and Justin Fields are going to be a nice combination. And DJ Moore, he's got that breakaway speed, and this offense is going to run a lot of screens and plays to him. And I think he could get open in this ball game. I know this Packers secondary is pretty decent, but DJ Moore is a solid number 2 receiver flex option. I think he's good this week. 22, DeAndre Hopkins of the Tennessee Titans. So now he's with the Titans this season as Hopkins. There's going to be some good games and some games where he don't show up. That's just how it goes when you play in this Tennessee offense. Obviously, with Derrick Henry being the main man over there, Ryan Tannehill being an inconsistent quarterback. But this week with a decent matchup and a fast track indoors at New Orleans, I think Hopkins has a pretty decent ball game. And I got him at 22, 23, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. So Tyler Lockett, always an underrated fantasy option, I believe. A guy that gets 1,000 yards each and every season. And this week here versus a pretty weak Rams secondary, I think Lockett goes for a pretty decent ball game. And it wouldn't be surprising if he finds the end zone in this one. 23, 24, Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So with Tom Brady gone, it's Baker Mayfield time over there now in Tampa Bay. And I don't know if Godwin's going to be that great this season, but he's still a possession receiver. He's still going to rack up a lot of bubble screens, I believe, and short yardage type of work. And this week is a flex option, potential number 2 wide receiver. I think he's decent. He's got a pretty alright matchup indoors as well, on the fast carpet as well. In Minnesota, 25, Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. So London, the problem with him is I think this ball game is going to be a lot of Bijan Robinson in it. Desmond Ridder, he's not a quarterback I could count on to get the football to his main targets consistently. And like I said, with the game script most likely being a run-heavy type of ball game and the Falcons leading early and often in this one, I don't think London puts up a huge ball game. And I got him at 25-26. Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deontay Johnson, this is going to be a tough ball game. That's why I got him a little bit down in the rankings here this week here versus a great San Francisco 49ers secondary and defense, and it could be a long day overall for this whole Steeler offense. I don't like a lot of options on the Steeler team this week here. Deontay Johnson, I know, is a good possession receiver, but also let's remember he didn't score one touchdown last year. So Deontay Johnson, I think it's going to be a tough day for this whole Steeler offense, and I don't see him having a great game. So I got him at 26-27. Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Mike Evans, we know he's a big play wide receiver. We know 9 seasons in a row with 1,000 yards, but now with Baker Mayfield and him in the Bucs not coming to an agreement on an extension here, Evans definitely could get traded towards the trade deadline. But this week here versus the Vikings, I don't know what to expect from Evans. Last season, he definitely had a down year compared to other seasons. Even though I know he got the 1,000 yards, a lot of ball games where he just didn't do much. So this week here, Mike Evans, I got him as a flex option or number 3 receiver in 3 receiver leagues for the most part. So I got him at 27. Number 28, Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers. So Ayuk and Brock Purdy had good rapport last season when Purdy was the starting quarterback for this team. And this week, it's not the greatest of matchups versus solid secondary over there in Pittsburgh. But I think Ayuk can make a few plays. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he has 50, 60 yards, possibly finds the end zone. And I got him at 28-29 to John Dotson of the Washington Commanders. So right now, Terry McLaurin, he might be out in this ball game, but I did rank McLaurin here in the top 36. But Dotson, we know he's a big play wide receiver, but consistency definitely could be a problem for him this season, obviously, with Sam Howell at the quarterback position, who we don't know what he could really do or if he's got enough of the arm strength to make all these NFL throws and get the ball to his wide receivers. But this week here with a good matchup versus a pretty weak Arizona secondary and a ball game that could get out of hand early, I got Dotson at 29-30. Christian Kirk of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Christian Kirk, we know he had a good season last year in his first year in Jacksonville. Him and Trevor Lawrence had a good rapport, but obviously he's going to lose some work now with Calvin Ridley coming in at the trade deadline last season. But Christian Kirk is a solid flex option this week. I like it with a third wide receiver in fantasy leagues with a good matchup versus the Indianapolis Colts that really don't have much over there in the secondary. So this week here, I got Kirk at 30-31, Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders. So we know McLaurin's banged up with the toe injury, and we don't know if he's going to play in this ball game. But if he does, I'm not going to expect big numbers out of him. And like I said, this game could be out of reach early for this Cardinal team, where they just run the clock out in the second half as this Commander team. So right now with the injury, and obviously we don't know 100% if he's going to play, is Terry McLaurin. I'm going to play it safe and have him at 31-32. Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. So I don't know what to expect from Michael Pittman this season, even though I think he's going to get peppered with targets a lot this season. Anthony Richardson, at this point, I think he's a better quarterback than Matt Ryan was last year, where he was at the end of his career and was a crash test dummy for this Indianapolis Colts team. And Pittman 2 years ago, he was a solid receiver, but right now I got to wait and see what he could do. And this is a pretty mediocre matchup versus an alright Jacksonville secondary. So I got him at 32-33, George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people raving about George Pickens in the offseason here and in training camp. But right now, we'll see what George Pickens really could do to start the season. But it's not a great matchup to start off week 1 versus obviously a great defense in the San Francisco 49ers. So right now, Pickens last year had some great games and some games where he didn't show up. So right now, week 1, I'm going to play it safe with Pickens, and he's not really a guy I like a lot to put in my lineup. So I got him at 33-34, Sky Moore of the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see, obviously, if Travis Kelce's going to play in this game. If not, we could see more targets and more playing time here for Sky Moore in this ball game for this Kansas City Chiefs team. But anyway, this week here as a flex option, at best, I got Sky Moore, third wide receiver in 3 receiver leagues, because the matchup isn't solid on paper. But like I said, Sky Moore, we didn't see much out of him last season. Travis Kelce, if he's going to play, he's going to get a lot of targets, no doubt about it. So I got him at 34-35. Hollywood Brown of the Arizona Cardinals. So Hollywood Brown is on an offense where there's not going to be much going on this season, but in terms of catching the football and getting targets, it's still going to be there for Hollywood Brown. And there's going to be a lot of ball games this season where obviously this Arizona Cardinal team is going to be trailing, and this week versus a mediocre secondary over there in Washington. I think he can make a few plays as Hollywood Brown, but still I won't have much confidence in starting Hollywood Brown in my lineup week in and week out just because of the quarterback play. So this week, 35 and 36, Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. So with Jerry Jeudy most likely out multiple weeks with his hamstring injury. Once again, he just can't stay healthy, is Jerry Jeudy. Courtland Sutton's going to be the number one wide receiver. He's got a pretty decent matchup versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And he's the number 3 receiver flex option. I think he can make some plays as Sutton. Health has just been an issue for him throughout his career. So that's the top 36 wide receivers I'm ranking here for week 1 of the fantasy football season.